Hello all, welcome along once again to my channel. It's great to see you again. I'm Peter Rising. I'm a Microsoft MVP in M365 apps and services, and today I'm here on my channel to share with you once again some information all about Azure AD, Microsoft 365 and learning these technologies from the very beginning. And this video we are going to focus on a very important topic in relation to security within Microsoft 365, and that is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. This is at its core a next generation protection piece of technology, but it's so much more than that. We have vulnerability management capability in there as well, attack surface reduction rules, and all sorts of good stuff. We're going to get into it in a moment. I'll give you a little bit of a disclaimer. This is potentially not my favorite subject within Microsoft 365 security, compliance, and identity. Not something I get into a great deal. I'm more in the compliance camp. I'm going to do my very best though to give you a good overview of this technology, what it does, how to use it, how to point you towards additional learning materials, simulations, labs and tutorials, and Microsoft Learn documentation, which you know that I love. But let's dive in together. Let's take a look and see how we get on with this. It's coming right up. So, in our MS102 exam study guide, we've been working on, in the last few videos, this section of manage security and threats by using Microsoft 365 Defender. We've already looked at managing security reports and alerts using the M365 Defender portal, and managing email and collaboration protection by using Microsoft Defender for Office 365. The third and final section on this part of the study guide is to implement and manage endpoint protection by using Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Now this is a big subject and a very popular one amongst the wider Microsoft community. You can find a lot of people invested in this topic and a lot of guidance out there. So hopefully we can add to that here and teach you all about what it is, how to use it, and how to study for it for the exam. And we're going to cover 4 main points here. We're going to, well, first of all, introduce Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, explain what it is. Then we'll look at how you onboard devices to Defender for Endpoint, configure the Defender for Endpoint settings, how to review and respond to endpoint vulnerabilities, and how to review and respond to risks identified in the Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management Dashboard. So without any further ado, let's get stuck in. And before we get to any good stuff in the security portal, we're going to take a look at some of the Microsoft Learn content at learn.microsoft.com. So let's start with the basic question. And as always, these links will be posted in the notes of this video. But the important question is, what is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint? And you can see in this article, we've got some good information here about what it's all about. Now, first of all, we can see what this applies to. And we can see immediately that there are different flavors of this product. Defender for Endpoint, Plan 1, Plan 2, Defender Vulnerability Management, and Microsoft 365 Defender. So take the time to look at and understand all of these different flavors of the product and how they are licensed. There's a good tip here. This is a good one to remember if you're taking the exam, in that Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is available in 2 plans. Defender for Endpoint Plan 1 and Plan 2. And a new Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management add-on is now available for Plan 2. So keep that in mind, familiarize yourself with all of the different plans. But to define Defender for Endpoint, let's highlight this here. What is it? Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is an enterprise endpoint security platform designed to help enterprise networks prevent, detect, investigate, and respond to advanced threats. So Defender for Endpoint uses the following combination of technology built into Windows 10 and 11 now, and of course Microsoft's robust cloud service. We do like that word, robust. And it consists of Endpoint behavioral sensors embedded into Windows, which collect and process behavioral signals from the operating system and then send this sensor data to your private, isolated cloud instance of Defender for Endpoint within the security portal at security.microsoft.com. It also consists of cloud security analytics, leveraging big data, device learning, and unique Microsoft optics across the Windows ecosystem, enterprise cloud products such as Office 365, and online assets. Behavioral signals are translated into insights, detections, and recommended responses to advanced threats. And finally, threat intelligence, which is generated by Microsoft hunters, security teams, and augmented by threat intelligence provided by partners. Threat intelligence enables Defender for Endpoint to identify attacker tools, techniques, and procedures, and generate alerts when they are observed in collected sensor data. Now, this little diagram here shows very nicely the components, the essential components of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And I encourage you to check out this page and take the time to click on all of these links. We'll get to these within the portal as well when we get into demo time. But let's just take the time to just go through all of these. Core Defender vulnerability management. We have attack surface reduction, or ASR. Next generation protection. Now this is really what you'll hear a lot, next generation protection. And that essentially means that this is a modern day equivalent or evolution of your more traditional antivirus products that you might have used in years gone by. So next generation protection is essentially what one of the core features of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. We have endpoint detection and response, analyzing signals from your endpoint devices and giving you the ability to respond to those. We have automated investigation and remediation capabilities. And finally, access to Microsoft threat experts. So these last two here in particular, anything within the Microsoft 365 or Azure AD landscape, whenever you get that term automated in there or automatic, always immediately assume that that is going to result in you requiring a higher level of license, something in or around the E5 suite or some flavor of add-in that is going to get you there. So lots of cool stuff in this initial introduction here. And we go down here and it tells you a bit more about these features. Core Defender Vulnerability Management. What is it? Well, it uses modern risk-based approaches to the discovery, assessment, prioritization, and remediation of vulnerabilities on your endpoints, and also any misconfigurations. And to further enhance your ability to assess your security posture and reduce risk, a new vulnerability management add-on for Plan 2 is now available. So another add-in you need to consider. Attack surface reduction. This is really cool. This is a really important part of Defender for Endpoint. And this is a set of capabilities that provides the first line of defense in the stack. And this is done by ensuring configuration settings are properly set and exploit mitigation techniques are applied. The capabilities resist attacks and exploitation. So this set of capabilities also includes network protection and web protection. Take the time to check out both of these links here and familiarize yourself with those processes. And these are going to help to regulate access to malicious IP addresses, domains, and URLs. Back to that next generation we talked about a moment ago, not Star Trek The Next Generation. I do love Star Trek. But next generation protection within Defender for Endpoint. And this is to further reinforce the security perimeter of your network. Then Defender for Endpoint uses this next generation protection designed to catch all types of emerging threats. Endpoint detection and response capabilities are put in place to investigate and respond to advanced threats that may have made it past the first two security pillars. And advanced hunting provides a query-based threat hunting tool that lets you proactively find breaches and create custom detections. automated investigation and remediation. And this, in conjunction with being able to quickly respond to advanced attacks, Defender for Endpoint offers automatic investigation and remediation capabilities that help reduce the volume of alerts in minutes at scale. Secure Score for devices. We've talked about Secure Score in earlier videos in this series. Now, you can view this specifically in relation to devices, and Defender for Endpoint includes this to help you dynamically assess the security state of your enterprise network, identify unprotected systems, and take recommended actions to improve the overall security of your organization. And then we have Microsoft Threat Experts, Defender for Endpoint's new managed threat hunting service, which provides proactive hunting, prioritization, and additional context and insights that further empower security operation centers, or SOCs, to identify and respond to threats quickly and accurately. And Defender for Endpoint customers need to apply for the Threat Experts Managed Threat Hunting Service to get proactive targeted attack notifications and to collaborate with these experts on demand. So note that that is an add-on service and that you need to enroll for it to benefit from the service. So lots and lots of cool stuff. We've got centralized configuration and administration APIs, integration with other Microsoft solutions, directly integrates with Defender for Cloud, with Sentinel, with Intune, Defender for Cloud Apps, Defender for Identity, Defender for Office, and Skype for Business. Goodness me. But okay, why not? One would presume that they mean Teams there, but who knows? Microsoft 365 Defender with M365 Defender, Defender for Endpoint, and various Microsoft security solutions form a unified pre- and post-breach enterprise defense suite that natively integrates across endpoint, identity, email, and applications to detect, prevent, investigate, and automatically respond to sophisticated attacks. So we talked about Microsoft 365 Defender about 2 videos ago in this series, so if you want to learn all about that, go back and check that one out in this playlist. And this year, I encourage you very, very highly to look at any of the training on learn.microsoft.com. The learn paths here are fantastic, and you can do this for absolutely free. You can understand Defender for Endpoint and how it can help prevent and detect and investigate and respond to the threats that your organization may encounter on your endpoints. So check that out and look at other recommended content as well. So that is our slightly bloated and long-winded introduction to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, but important to go into a bit of detail on this one, I think, because it's a very important topic, a very relevant topic, and we need to know as much about this one as possible, because there will be a fair amount of this that you need to know if you are going to be a device endpoint administrator in your organization, and of course if you are planning to take the exam as well. All right then, let's get into some demo time. And we're in the Microsoft 365 Defender portal at security.microsoft.com. As always, be aware of the rights and permissions that you need to access this portal. You need to be a security administrator, potentially. I'm in as a global administrator here, but be aware of that. And as ever, do not have standing permissions. Use privileged identity management, which is something we will get to in the compliance section of this series when we get into the fantastic Microsoft purview, which is my favorite topic. But back to Defender and the Defender portal here. Now, under Assets, we should have Devices, but we don't. And that is because in this particular tenant, I did not have a license for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint in any form of plan. I've been into my Microsoft 365 Admin Center and I've got myself a trial of Defender for Endpoint Plan 2. This takes a while to take effect within the portal, so as things stand in recording this video, it has not yet appeared in here. Now, the first place you would go to check this to activate your Defender for Endpoint experience is you would scroll down the security portal to the settings section. And in here, you would expect to see devices. Now, if I wait patiently, and keep on refreshing this over the next couple of hours, or sometimes it can take a bit longer, I'll get a devices section in here. But I don't have that time to wait, so I'm going to use a tenant that I prepared earlier that already had Defender for Endpoint available in there. So that's a good piece of information to help get you started. Make sure that you have the correct licensing in place, otherwise you're not going to be able to activate and use the feature. Okay, switching over to my other tenant, which looks lovely and green there at the top there. Nice indeed. So I'm in the security portal once again, security.microsoft.com, and as you can see in this one, under assets I have got some devices, and I have a device inventory. I'm actually not sure if I have any devices in here, to be honest, but and it appears that no, I do not. But that's fine, that's absolutely fine. So let's move down to the settings, and as you can see we have endpoints in here and general settings for endpoints. Now, the very start of the experience, when you click on this for the first time, you'll not immediately get to this. You'll get a preparing Defender for Endpoint sort of progress bar, and that takes a little bit of time to configure as well. But into here you will get in a short while after that initial configuration set of settings. Let's clear that sidebar. You know how much I love the sidebars. But let's take a look. It's taken us straight into the advanced features of endpoints. I don't really want to be in there just yet. I'm just going to come back to that one. But let's go through licenses, and we can see that I have a subscription for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Plan 2. So that qualifies my tenant for this feature, which is awesome. Some email notifications. I can add some alerts here for vulnerabilities and the like. So I can add a notification rule here. So let's see what sort of thing we can do here. So name our notification, notify Peter, we'll call it very inventively. What are our notification settings? We can include our organization name, we can include an organization specific portal link, we can include any device information, and this information might be processed by recipient mail servers that are not in the geographic location you've selected for your Defender for Endpoint data, so that's important compliance information there. Let's take that. Devices, notify for alerts on all devices, and we can select the alert severity that will trigger this notification. So we have choices here of informational, low, medium, or high. Well, I certainly want alerts on high and possibly medium as well. Maybe I don't want them for low or informational. So have a think about what you need to configure there for your alert severity notifications. And click on to next. Okay. Now, unless I've done something very silly here and obviously wrong, which I cannot spot, it's not letting me proceed to next here. So I'm hoping that's a glitch in the portal today. So I'm going to have to cancel that one. But it's very simple, usually, to create a notification rule in there. Under vulnerabilities, we can add a similar for vulnerabilities here. So we can, again, let's see if it lets us do this one. Tell Peter about vulnerabilities, activate vulnerability notification rule, what are our settings, and here we've got new vulnerability found, including 0-day vulnerabilities. So this is very important. All 0-day vulnerabilities and related security updates are included. It's hugely important to try and keep on top of such things. Severity threshold, we can set a threshold here of low, medium, high, critical. Let's select critical, and we've got some further options that we can filter by here. Exploit was verified, a new public exploit, exploit added to an exploit kit, so we can select which of these that we want or don't want. Let's select them all and include the organization name in the email or not. Next, hey, we're getting further here this time, so this is grand. Let's put in Peter.rising let's just send it to my Outlook address. So that will be cool. And click next. And we've got review of the rule. So excellent. I've been able to create that vulnerability rule. So that's in place now, which is awesome. Really don't know why that alert one didn't take hold. We've got some auto remediation rules in here, and we can set the automated remediation levels. There are no items found in here at the moment, so we've got nothing to respond to. Here we can look next at the permissions section and look into, first of all, roles. We can define admin roles, corresponding permissions, and the Azure Active Directory security groups assigned to the roles. Now in here we have got the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint administrator, which is the default role with full permissions to the service, but we can add other roles into here as well as required. So we can create a role, give it a name and a description. We can give the permissions that we want it to have, such as security operations and threat and vulnerability management. We can put in active remediation actions, threat and vulnerability management, alert investigation. So we can get quite granular here in terms of what we want in these customized roles. So we can go ahead and create one if we want to. I won't do that, but that just gives you an idea of what you can do in here. We can also configure some device groups here as well. We can organize our devices into groups, which obviously in larger organizations is going to be very beneficial in terms of organizational units, geographical, multi-geo organizations. This is really, really cool to be able to organize your devices more logically. So you can put in your group name, a remediation level that you want to assign to it. So no automated response, semi require approval for all folders, semi require approval for non-temp folders, semi require approval for all core folders, and full remediation of threats automatically. So lots of cool stuff in here. You can add the devices you want into the group, preview the devices, the user access, and create your device group. Again, I'm not going to go through and do that there. We have an API section here. We can click onto SIM, and we can enable a SIM connector to pull alerts through to your security and event management SIM solution, which is hopefully Microsoft Sentinel, because I'm a Microsoft guy, I'm going to say that, or to pull alerts directly through the Alerts REST API. So click on these links here to learn more about how to pull alerts to your SIM tools, and in the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint guide for configuration details. So I'll include these links in the video. So while we're here, we'll just open those in a new tab so I recall to include them once we finish. So that's the general setting of the SIM tab. We've got an MSSP tab here as well, and this is relating to the MDE, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint SIM API deprecation date has been set to December the 31st of this year as we record this. But here you can authorize your managed security service provider application to receive alerts. So you'll have to provide the application ID and the tenant ID here in order to authorize that. So this all relates to your SIEM system and capabilities that you may or may not have. So important one to know about. Let's go into the rules section now, and here first and foremost we have alert suppression rules. So any rules that are in place will be displayed here. We have some indicators, and we can it's always very, very difficult to demonstrate certain Microsoft technologies in non-live environments when you've not got any results to match against, but hopefully it's useful to get a view of some of these areas and see what you can expect. But in here you would see any matching file hashes or IP addresses, URLs or domains or certificates that have been detected by the indicators section. Process memory indicators here. So the following memory content hashes will determine whether a process will be automatically remediated. Block list or skipped, allowed list. when identified during an investigation. So we've also got some web content filtering settings, well, not settings here, information here. At the moment, it's telling us web content filtering is off to block access to websites containing unwanted content and track web activity. You need to turn this feature on. And if you want to do that, if you want to enable the web content filtering, you can quickly click here, and it's going to take you right to the advanced features where it's going to enable you to do some of that. So that's pretty cool. Let's just go back to the remainder of this list. Automation uploads. We've got in here things like file content analysis, which submits suspicious files identified by automated investigation to the cloud for additional inspection. Only files with the specified extension names will be submitted. So this is on by default. We have file extension names here, which we can presumably we can add to. I'm presuming we can, but I'm not going to tweak with that just at the moment. And we have memory content analysis also. If you'd like Microsoft Defender for Endpoint to automatically investigate memory content of processes, then please enable the memory content analysis. And when enabled, that will memory content might be uploaded to Defender for Endpoint during an automated investigation. So again, you can toggle these on and off as needed. Automated folder exclusions. This is something you can configure from here, in that you can add folder exclusions here that you want to be excluded from the process. So the folder, the extensions, the file names, and an optional description. Then we've got configuration management. So in here, and there's a warning here, so what's this all about? And starting on May the 4th, which is the day we are recording this video. May the 4th be with you, Star Wars fans. I do like Star Wars too. The OS platform attribute in Azure AD and Intune for Windows servers will show up as Windows Server rather than Windows. Wowza, that is major news. I'm sure it is in some circles, but that seems rather underwhelming to me. Azure AD dynamic group rules that use equals Windows should... Oh no, that is important. I see why they're calling that out. Okay, so update your dynamic group rules if that is the case. So that is important information. I do apologize for belittling that. Security setting management allows security setting in Intune to be enforced by Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. This configuration setting will apply to devices that are not yet enrolled to Intune. So you'll need to turn on the integration in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint connector settings under Intune. For more information and prerequisites, see Security Settings Management for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Let's open that in a new tab, and I'll include this one in the list of links included in the video. Here we have an option here that we can toggle on and off to use Defender for Endpoint to enforce security configuration settings from Intune. So we can turn that on, and we can choose which OS platforms to apply the settings on, then select which set of devices to implement it on. And to test the feature on a specific set of devices, tag them with MDE-management. So we can select Windows client devices on all devices or on tagged devices. We can select Windows Server devices, again, on all or on tagged devices. So interesting. That is cool. We'll turn that one off again. Okay, I'll come back to this section in a minute. We'll look at the final one here, network assessments and assessment jobs. Assessment jobs has a new home. Interesting. So assessment jobs is now under device discovery section in settings. Take me there. Okay, let's see what that does. Is it gonna? No, it's not going to open the new tab, which is very frustrating. But authenticated scans, choose devices to be scanned regularly and added to the device inventory. So it looks like we can configure some settings here to download a scanner, add a new scan, and some export settings there. I don't think that's massively relevant to what we're doing here. So let's go back, but want to be aware of. But I want to focus a fair bit on onboarding specifically and offboarding as well. So let's look at this under device management. And there are many options that you can configure for onboarding your devices into Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So as I alluded to earlier on, it does apply to Windows 10 and 11. So that Learn documentation needs to be updated instead of complaining about that, maybe I'll go in and do that, because I can do so. Anyone can do so. So maybe I will. But here we go. When onboarding your devices, you have a lot of options to do. You can select the operating system to start the onboarding process. So we've got some options here: Windows 10 and 11, Windows 7 SP1 and 8.1. Bizarrely, I would highly discourage that. We've got some server options here, right back to 2008 R2 SP1. So we've got server 2012 R2. We've got server 1803, 2019 and 2022. We can do this to Mac OS as well if we want to, and Linux server, and iOS and Android. So there are a lot of operating system platforms that we can choose, and you will find that the selections you make determine the options available to you for onboarding the devices. So do familiarize yourself with all of the different options. You may be tested on this knowledge when you're taking the MS 102 exam, so try and get familiar with those. By and large, I would say most of the time people are going to be configuring Windows 10 and 11. And what are the deployment methods available to us for this onboarding? So this is our first step, and it's incomplete because we haven't done it. So deployment method, we have got some options. We can use a local script for up to 10 devices. We can do group policy. You can configure your devices using group policy. So for more information on how to configure, see configuring by group policy, another open and new tab link for me to include for you to have a read of in the Defender for Endpoint guide. I'm sure we've got that all ready to include, but I will open it just in case and make sure it's included. Wrong tab. There we go. So group policy, if we were doing that one, we'd need to download our onboarding package. We can also do endpoint configuration manager, current branch and later. We can do mobile device management within Microsoft Intune. And we have the option for VDI onboarding scripts for non-persistent devices, which would apply to things like Windows 365, AVD, that sort of thing. Non-persistent profiles. So which you choose here is going to very much depend on your situation and your preferred strategy. There's no right or wrong answer in terms of how to do this, but for argument's sake, let's go to Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. And again, it's changing the information here that it's giving us, and it's telling us that version 1606 and later of Endpoint Configuration Manager provides an integrated console to deploy Microsoft Defender for Endpoint policies and monitor the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint agent health status. And for more information on how to configure and monitor, see Defender for Endpoint section in the Endpoint Configuration Manager guide. We'll open that in a new tab and we'll make that lovely link available to you all as well. We can go and download that onboarding package. I'll not do that because I'm not actually going to do this. But again, depending on the methodology that you have selected here, or here rather, and the operating system combination, you'll get different options down here. So for this methodology, we need to run a detection test. The first device detection test is incomplete, and what we need to do to verify that the device is properly onboarded and reporting to the service, we need to run this script which Microsoft have kindly provided. So at a command prompt window, you need to copy and paste this in and run it, and then that command prompt will close automatically. And if successful, the detection test will be marked as complete and a new alert will appear in a few minutes. So that's cool. This is absolutely awesome. Now, what you can do here is, do you want to experience the service in depth? If so, you can explore simulations and tutorials. So let's open that link in a new tab as well and take a wee look. And this is going to take us into the simulations and tutorials section, which is absolutely fantastic. There's lots of options in here For even stuff beyond Microsoft, we've got some red team stuff here from Atomic, Attack IQ, loads of great stuff, but let's not go off on too much of a tangent. Let's take a look at another example. So if we change our deployment method and we go to mobile device management in Intune, that gives us the same sort of approach. If we change to VDI onboarding, then we've got to use the VDI onboarding script to onboard. We can run a detection test again here. Similar process. Group policy, all very similar actually. It looks like either way we've got to run that detection test on a device that we want to onboard, and then it's going to either succeed or not, generate that alert, and then proceed from there. It's been a while since I've been through this actually. I'm going to give you a disclaimer right now. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is not necessarily my favorite subject. It's not something I do an awful lot. I'll give a couple of plugs here for dear friends in the community, fellow Microsoft MVPs. If you want to learn more about Defender for Endpoint from someone who really knows what they're talking about with it, go and check out my friend Rue Campbell, who talks a lot and blogs a lot about Defender for Endpoint. He really knows his stuff, and think about people like Victor Hedberg and Fabian Bader and Rudy Ooms and a ton of other folks out there in the community. This is not my favorite, shall we say. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I can't wait to get to compliance, you can probably tell. But this is important stuff for the exam, and we need to know about it. So this is all about onboarding. Offboarding, equally important. So you need to go through some of these sections here to offboard devices when you need to, and similar process here of selecting the operating system, select your deployment method for offboarding, so you can again use local scripts, group policy, endpoint config manager, current branch and later, or MDM stroke Microsoft Intune. Download the package and follow that through. So that is, it's fairly straightforward when you run through it, and not too difficult to follow. So the last thing that we need to look at in this settings section is the advanced features that I skipped over earlier. I wanted to leave this till last, and this section provides a set of advanced features that you can enable or not as you need. And these features require integration with other products, and you'll need to verify that these settings are enabled to use the features. Let's take a look. Live response. This allows users with appropriate role-based access control permissions, or RBAC, to investigate devices they are authorized to access using a remote shell connection. So we toggle these on. It's connected to the one below actually. So live response for servers, similar things. So you can't obviously enable one without, well, you can, it seems. So that's interesting. But this one is grayed out without that one. So you have to have this one on to have that one, but you can then toggle that one off. Interesting. Live response unsigned script execution. This enables using unsigned PowerShell scripts in live response. Do we get any more detail if we toggle that one on? We don't seem to. Restrict correlation to within scoped device groups, and when this setting is turned on, alerts are correlated into separate incidents based on their scoped device group. So by default, incident correlation happens across the entire tenant scope. So I can see how that could be useful, but we have an alert here telling us that changing this setting impacts future alert correlations only. So it won't go backwards and change anything that is already there. So that's important to know. Enable EDR in block mode. This one, when turned on, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint leverages behavioral blocking and containment capabilities by blocking malicious artifacts or behaviors observed through post-breach endpoint detection and response capabilities. The feature does not change how Microsoft Defender for Endpoint performs detection, alert generation, and incident correlation. To get the best protection, make sure to apply security baselines in Intune and see EDR in block mode for more details. Let's open up these links to include for you to have a read of. So we can enable that one if we want to. Automatically resolve alerts. This one was already toggled on by default, and this will resolve an alert if automated investigation finds no threats or has successfully remediated all malicious artifacts. Unfortunately, as you saw earlier, we don't really have any alerts in this demo environment, but you can use that simulation and tutorials tool to explore deeper and maybe get some better examples. Allow or block file. This makes sure that Windows Defender Antivirus is turned on and the cloud-based protection feature is enabled in your organization to use the allow or block file feature. So that's an important one for sure. Custom network indicators configures devices to allow or block connections to IP addresses, domains, or URLs in your custom indicator lists. To use this feature, devices must be running Windows 10 version 17.09 or later. They should also have network protection in block mode and version, not going to say that, or later of the anti-malware platform. And note that network protection leverages reputation services that process requests in locations that may be outside of the location you have selected for your Microsoft Defender for Endpoint data. That's a very important point to look out for. We've had a couple of examples of that now, so be aware of that if you have any location stipulations that you must adhere to for compliance. Tamper protection is on by default, and that will stop unwanted changes to your security solution and its essential functions. With tamper protection, malicious apps are prevented from turning off security features like virus and threat protection, behavior monitoring, cloud-delivered protection, and more. Learn about the tamper protection requirements. Let's take a look at that one for the list. Show user details. This enables displaying the user details, picture, name, title, department, stored in Azure Active Directory. So you can toggle that off if you need to consider some privacy. Skype for Business again. Integrate. I suppose this could be on premises. My brain thinks only in cloud terms. I really tend to forget that on premises is still a thing. I hate that fact. I think it should be well gone by now in the year 2023. But it is what it is. Not everybody is capable of making that cloud journey. So I guess that's what that must relate to. But this enables one-click communication with users. Office 365 Threat Intelligence Connection. This connects to Office 365 Threat Intelligence to enable security investigations across Office 365 mailboxes and Windows devices. Defender for Cloud Apps, very important stuff. This forwards Microsoft Defender for Endpoint signals to Defender for Cloud Apps, formerly known as Cloud App Security, and what many people still can't help calling it, even probably about 2 years later after it was renamed. And this gives administrators deeper visibility into both sanctioned cloud apps and shadow IT. Also, it gives them the ability to block unauthorized applications when the custom network indicator setting is turned on. Forwarded data is stored and processed in the same location as your cloud app security data. There you go, it's called that there. The feature is available with an E5 license. So again, always watch out for the licensing permutations. Web content filtering, we saw earlier on that we would need to go and activate this, and here is where we do it. We can toggle on web content filtering to block access to websites containing unwanted content and track web activity across all domains. Just specify the web content you want to block. Create a web content filtering policy. Ensure you have network protection in block mode when deploying the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint Security baseline. Let's take a look at this, and that's going to take us right into here, into that actual setting. And we did see that earlier, and it took us to turn that feature on. So cool. Download quarantine files. Backup quarantine files as a secure and compliant location so they can be downloaded directly from quarantine. Here we have share endpoint alerts with Microsoft Compliance Center. So this forwards endpoint security alerts and their triage status to the Microsoft Compliance Center at compliance.microsoft.com, allowing you to enhance insider risk management policies with alerts. and remediate internal risks before they cause harm. Forwarded data is processed and stored in the same location as your Office 365 data. So this is a really important one if you're using the Microsoft Purview feature inside of risk management, which I'm sure we'll get to talk about in the coming videos. So one to bear in mind. And there's a lot of this that you'll find across the security compliance features of Microsoft 365 that can cross between the definitions. Authenticated telemetry. Keep authenticated telemetry turned on to prevent spoofing telemetry into your dashboard. On by default, and you can understand why. Microsoft Intune connection connects to Microsoft Intune to enable sharing of device information and enhanced policy enforcement. It can use risk information to enforce conditional access and other security policies. Device discovery allows onboarded devices to discover unmanaged devices in your network and assess vulnerabilities and risks. Preview features allow access to the preview features. Turn on to be among the very first to try the upcoming features. So be careful about this one though. If you want to be cutting edge, then that's absolutely fine. But if you want to let others work the bugs out of some of the newer features, then you may want to turn that one off. And then finally, we've got endpoint attack notifications, which enables Microsoft to actively hunt for critical threats to be prioritized based on urgency and impact over your endpoint data. For proactive hunting across the full scope of Microsoft 365 Defender, including threats that span email, collaboration, identity, cloud applications, as well as endpoints. And you can apply that there and save your preferences. So absolutely cool indeed. So I'm not going to save those because I'm just showing you those to demonstrate those advanced features that you can leverage as part of the wonderful Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. All right, some great stuff covered there in that section. We do have a few more things to look at for Defender for Endpoint before we start to wind this video up. And this, again, is in the Security Center or the Microsoft 365 Defender Security Center. And let's take a look quickly at devices under Assets. And then we have this Endpoint section here as well, which appears in our Security Center after we enable Defender for Endpoint. But first, under the Assets, if we click onto our devices, we get our device inventory here. I don't have any devices registered yet. You will have to go through the process of onboarding, as we saw just a few moments ago, go through one of those processes for scripting and getting the devices onboarded and visible in here. But in the inventory, you would see any devices in here, and we could see the total number of devices. We could see them broken down into high risk, high exposure, or not onboarded. So right from here, in actual fact, you can click on onboard devices from here to go right into that settings area. That's another way you can quickly get to that, just for informational purposes. What we do have in here as well is we have some boxes at the top here. We can upgrade the vulnerability management capabilities, and we can try things like app control, baseline assessments, and more. So if we click onto that, we can go in and take the vulnerability management to the next level. And with this, we can explore all of the Defender vulnerability management capabilities in one simple trial of 90 days, and you will have access to all of these solutions and more. So we get application control to give security admins the ability to block all currently known vulnerable versions of an application. Security baselines to create and manage baseline profiles to monitor the posture of your devices against their desired security state. Browser extensions to view all the browser extensions installed on the devices in your organization, including the installed versions, permissions requested, associated risk, and more. And certificate inventory to view certificates details on devices in your organization, including the expiration date, algorithm used, key sized, and more. This is really cool stuff, actually. I think many an organization will be wanting to take advantage of this. It's kind of a shame it's in an add-on, yet again, a bit more on top of what you've already had to shell out for, but it's the nature of the beast at the minute. So I'm going to begin that trial actually and take a look at it and see what it can do for me. But we don't need to focus on that right now. Okay, so next let's look at our endpoints section here and explore what we get with the wonderful Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Let's start with the all-important vulnerability management. If we expand this out, we can see the features that we have available to us. First of all, we have a dashboard, which is a very useful starting point to get us an executive type summary overview screen with our tiles here, which show us things like our organization exposure score, our top security recommendations, secure score for devices, device exposure distribution, top events over 7 days, remediation activities, and much more. So there's a lot of great visuals in here for a quick view at your vulnerability management posture and current situation and score. We can move down to recommendations. We can see any security recommendations that are presented in this section based on our configuration and the onboarded devices that we have. You'll see them in here. No data available right now as I don't have any devices onboarded and don't have any devices onboarded certainly that have any recommendations or remediations that we can process. Here under remediation, we can see any remediation activities that we might have in progress or activities past a due date. We can see any exceptions to our remediations, any blocked applications, which just a few moments ago I started that trial and it's not quite ready yet, but that would appear available to me after that has come into effect. And I've lost my place. Where were we? Remediation. Inventories. We have inventories here for software, for browser extensions, for certificates, hardware and firmware. Again, some of these are based on that additional features trial that I signed up for. So this is why it's important to know what you can and can't do with and without the add-ons. Weaknesses, we can gain visibility into browser extensions and risks. Another thing we can try for free here. So we can look at the vulnerabilities in the organization, exploitable vulnerabilities, critical vulnerabilities, 0-day vulnerabilities, vulnerabilities with no security update and with some security updates. So we'll get that sort of data in here. We can look at an event timeline as well, so we can view by timeline here any new vulnerabilities and new 0-day, exploitable and new configuration assessments. And we can go in here and configure some email notification settings. Also, there's so much to configure for Defender for Endpoint. Okay, so that's the vulnerability management section. Lots to consider there, and I encourage you, if you're going to look deeper into that, to get a demo environment and diligently test this with some devices that you onboard and get to understand those features. Okay, partners and APIs. Here we can see we've got 2 items in here, one for connected applications, so any applications that you have connected would be displayed here. We don't have any in this tenant at the time, and you can leverage Defender ATP APIs using partner applications, interoperability partners, lots of information there on handy links. API Explorer, now here we can use this to test Microsoft Defender for Endpoint capabilities, and we can use all of these sample queries to get started. So we've got a lot of sample queries in here that we can use. So we can get top 10 security recommendations and click on that and it pastes it in there, and we can run that query and see what it comes back with. And there we go. Success, status code 200, 553 milliseconds. So there we go. Not entirely sure if or where it has put that, but we can try and figure that out in a moment. So has it put that in the recommendations? No, it hasn't. One for the future, I think. Not certain about that, but that is the API Explorer, and you can run those queries and see what results you get from them. So that's partners and APIs. Evaluation and tutorials. Now this is where you'll get some real value here. You can really play about here with the evaluation lab and look at tutorials and simulations. So here we can manage test devices, attack simulations, and reports. Learn and experience the Defender for Endpoint capabilities through a guided walkthrough. Maybe I should do this. It's clear that my knowledge is not entirely up to date on all things Defender for Endpoint. But that disclaimer again, it's not my most frequented area within Microsoft 365 security and compliance. I don't find myself in this territory that often, shall we say. Configuration management. We can go to a dashboard here for configuration management, where we will get statistics on device security management based on Defender for Endpoint, Intune, Config Manager, unknown sources. We can view all the devices there. Control security setting management, onboarded via MDE security management. We can connect to Intune from here. Configure Defender for Endpoint to connect to Intune to view data, so we can go to the settings here to do that, and that's again in the advanced features that we didn't configure earlier, but we could have. Connect to Intune again. Oh, so that's onboarded via Intune baseline. So configure Defender for Endpoint to connect to Intune to view that baseline data. Device attack surface management. This is predictive analysis and tuning of attack surfaces on your devices. So you can go to attack surface management there to look at the exclusion rules and so on. So lots of good stuff in here. Web protection coverage. And that's about it. So I hope that's been a useful introduction to Defender for Endpoint. I know it's been very high level, and I know that we've not really had any proper devices or proper results or statistics or data in here that we could really drill down to and analyze. What I would encourage you to do is definitely take a look at those simulations and tutorials, because they are going to be so useful to you. And the evaluation lab, I think, is going to be great. You can provision. It looks like I've started to do this previously actually and not completed it, so I might run through that. I may even do another video on this at some point, going through this simulation to show this in a bit more detail. But in the scope of an introduction to Defender for Endpoint and what you're going to need to look at and learn for the MS 102 exam, I think that's a good beginning. I hope you will agree. But do let me know in the comments of this video. But we shall start to wind this one up now. And that is that, my friends. Thank you, as always, for joining me on my video on my channel today. It's hugely appreciated. I hope that was useful. As I said at the start, not potentially my best, strongest subject. I'm looking forward so much to the final section of the MS 102 exam guide, because that is right in my wheelhouse. I love compliance, I love Microsoft Purview, and I can't wait to talk all about it to you in the upcoming videos, the last few in this series that we've been doing together with you. So let me know what you thought. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions and thoughts on this. Please do hit that like button. I would be so grateful if you did hit that like button, because it helps me out so much to move up the YouTube algorithms and helps me to reach more people, because that's what I want to do at the end of the day. I want to reach more people and help more people on their learning journey to learn, share and repeat. which is what I love the most. Please subscribe as well to the channel. I'm slowly but surely getting towards 2,000 subscribers as we record this one. I think I'm something like 1850, so I'm 150 subscribers away. I cannot believe the support I've had with this channel. It's been fantastic, and thank you so much for all your support. But please keep sharing and spreading the word and liking, subscribing and commenting. It means the world to me. Okay, we're gonna wind this one down, and I'll be back with you real soon with another video all about compliance and Microsoft Purview. Watch out for it, hit that notifications bell and you won't miss it. Until next time, take care my friends, bye bye.